Be somewhere. Well, I want to welcome everybody to another LinkedIn Live. If it's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Standard Time, then it's Hour of Empower, LinkedIn Live every day, 7 days a week. And we just see this as being such a wonderful opportunity to learn, to grow, to meet, to greet. And it's all about the audience. It's all about giving you value for your time and your thought, and also building hopefully a more sustainable future for you with a more supportive group. Leslie's here already. Thank you, Leslie, for being first one. And today's topic is partnering, and with that said, I want to introduce or reintroduce Roxanne. You know her pretty much. She's here commenting and supporting on a daily basis. Dean happens to be here too. Thank you, Dean. And with that said, Roxanne, why don't you share a little bit of who you are this lovely Sunday, and what you think about partnering and the show and the guests, I mean, the audience, and anything else you can think of.
Well, thank you so much for having me this morning, Dawn. As you know, I am a huge fan of the show, and I come for myself. I'm going to be 100% transparent and saying I'm here because I want to be here, and I love the people of this group, and I love that people show up and they participate, and you've created a partnership with your audience as much as you have your guest speakers. For myself, I am a business broker. I help broker the sale and purchases of businesses and the financing of businesses, and it's busy. It keeps happening, and for that I'm thankful, and I'm very, very blessed. But this show is something I do for myself, and it's not about what I'm going to get from it monetarily. It's what I get from it personally. And I don't know if I'm going to always say what I want 100% perfectly, but I just want you to know how much this show does mean to me. It's for me, it happens at 12 noon every day. I'm an hour ahead of New York. I know that some people don't necessarily know that there's time ahead of the continental U.S., but there are other time zones, and I know that you know that because you have guests from around the world. But for me, the show happens at 12 noon, and historically, I'm a workaholic, and I don't break, and I don't take breaks, and this show has caused me to take that personal time. So I actually take a break, and I make my lunch, and I eat my lunch while I'm listening to the show. And it's actually made me a healthier person for doing that, and to have that mental break and just that encouragement. So I sure appreciate everybody who's here. I have to say I'm really surprised that Gene's here this morning because I understood that he's in Chicago and is traveling today. So I don't know if he's going to let us know a little bit more about that in the comments, or he'll make a post about it later today and tell us more about what he's doing. Oh, and I left my hair down. I didn't wear my hat today because Leslie said she didn't recognize me and couldn't find me on LinkedIn with my hat on.
Well, well, that's the great thing about this show is people can get so comfortable, so positively informal early on that it sets the tone and the mood for the audience. The audience sets us up for questions and thoughts and direction. And really, that's the key, is how much can everybody contribute to themselves and to others to make this more powerful, more empowering, uh, and something that has value beyond just professional situations, but really bring you into a better mindset overall for your everyday balanced life. So I think that's so important. Sima's here. Want to recognize some of these great people who show up pretty much every day. Ashif, thank you for coming today. Kelly, who's just really is, like I say, an anchor here. Wonderful to be with all you guys and all others who comments I cannot see. Olu's here. He's getting to be a daily, which can't thank you enough, Olu. A truly wonderful morning. They're truly glad and grateful to be able to be among you. Thank you for the energy you bring to create the healing, positive, and deeply uplifting atmosphere. And it's all because we're working collaboratively, collectively, respectfully, and like me and Roxanne were saying before, we were just uh, relating to Lillian's appearance. And she's such a charming person, has such a beautiful story. And now we know more about Lillian. In that way, we can help more of Lillian, and now that we know she's looking for a position in Chicago in a hospital job, that's really good information if someone knows somebody, because you're not going to go wrong with Lillian. So with that said, partnering is really so key on LinkedIn, because it's too big of an opportunity for one person to learn, to do, to support, to build on, or you're going to build very small. Dr. Constance is here, had the lovely opportunity of being on 3 times with Dr. Constance last week on my show, on her show, and then on Mike's show that night. And I think what we're starting to do is expand our circles, open our doors to each other, because, higher learning is the more curriculums you can visit, the more subjects you can take, the more teachers you can meet, the more well-rounded it is. So thank you, Dr. Constance. I'm definitely going to have Dr. Constance back on, because she really personifies what we're trying to do here. Kelly's here, and Kelly says a better mindset definitely impacts us in our work and our job seeking. This show makes me a better version of myself every day. Well, it's what comes around goes around, and that's the beauty of it. If we just keep giving out to others and encourage them to give to themselves first, get themselves strong, get themselves confident, and then come in and join the fray. Let's pick things that we can do more to support each other. When you're thinking of things to do, think of things you can do with the people you're already doing them with. At a certain point, it's time to work on what you built instead of just keep building. And what you do, especially what you initiate, comes back to you so much in ways you'll never understand. So, yeah, we didn't say that, Roxanne. New Brunswick, Canada. Everybody's looking for that Jeopardy answer. How do you get an hour ahead of the U.S.? So thank you, Leslie, for bringing that up. And with that said, isn't it just great, Roxanne, when people are like, hello, thank you, great to see you every day. And that alone is like a huge applause to everybody in the group.
Well, I think you've heard me say this before, and I forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I see this and LinkedIn as a whole, but I see the show that you have, Dawn, is this wonderful cocktail party, and people can come into one room and into another room, and they get to see people that they know, and they or want to know better, and that's why that there's such a flow within the group of meeting and greeting, because we are seeing each other, and we try to be here daily. I think everybody wants to be here daily, but there are times where life happens, and scheduling and jobs and dentist appointments, or what have you, that we miss. And when we do miss being here. And I see throughout the thread today, people are saying, I really missed being here, or I'm really glad to be here today. And I know I feel the same way. I want to be here daily, and when I can't, I go back and I listen to the recordings, and that's another great feature that Dawn utilizes. So when we were talking about partnerships today, I was thinking about this, and just what constitutes a partnership, and I'm thinking we are in relationships every day. We navigate our life in relationships, and even with standing and buying groceries, for that moment that you're in front of that cashier, you're in a relationship in that moment with that cashier. You
Hmm.
know, so when we think about our life being a series of, either momentary relationships or lifelong relationships, I'm thinking, what's the difference? And I'm asking this to our audience.
Hmm.
What's the difference between a relationship and a partnership? Because sometimes in my mind, I think those two really cross over, as far as day-to-day life goes. you know I think that the cashier helping me get through my buying of my groceries and on with my day, that's a partnership in that moment. Working with that person, um, getting the groceries loaded up and through the cashier line. So that's just one example that I was thinking of, but I'm curious what other people have to say about that, and what you have to say as well, Dawn.
Oh, great. Well, I do have something to say. And I do believe that it's a two-way street where relationships can create partnerships and partnerships can create relationships. So, they both can come at different times where you know somebody for a period of time and then you decide, hey, let's partner on something. You could be partnering with somebody you really never knew very well. Maybe it was just a strategic or financial interaction, but now you get to build a relationship. And I think partnership, relationship starts to create more and more expanded opportunities, right? Because you start somewhere, get to work a little bit with each other. And the beauty of LinkedIn Lives, everything is one day at a time because it's a daily show. And that's all you have to worry about is today and maybe a little bit of tomorrow. But if you can just focus on allowing whatever you're doing to guide you instead of being in front, it's great to follow a trend. It's great to follow a person. Too many people are only driving their train and only on the tracks they have access to. But when you can partner, all of a sudden you can combine. And I think that's one of the definitions of partnering is combining either people or partner with resources or whatever. And now you build scale. And I think that's essential because at a certain point in the beginning of anything, because of building momentum, you need to do more and expect very little in the hope one day you can do less and expect a lot more, right? So the investment that you're not getting a return on is a future investment that's going to take time, just like building a building, right? There's a lot of money invested in building foundations and land development before you see a dime of rent, but that's the key. So it encompasses so much, uh, from so many that it gives you a wide open slate to work with. So, with that said, yeah, I am curious, just like Roxanne, to what other people's definition of partnering is, or any other thoughts relating to anything we're talking about. So, Roxanne, it's kind of interesting to see all these new people, frequent people. But, at the end of the day, what actually filters for us is people's hearts, people's intentions, because you can't hide who you really are over time. And why would you want to? Why wouldn't you just choose another group where you fit?
Exactly.
You know?
I have to tell you, Dawn, when you said that, it reminded me of my brother. My brother is a very unique person, and I love him deeply. But he is literally he walks to the beat of his own drum. But way back when we were teenagers, my brother he's got a sense of humor that I relate to and I actually admire. But he would often say, "Don't have to leave mad, just leave."
Hmm.
So if you don't fit in, it's okay. There's a place where you do, and you for your own health and well-being and mental wellness, you want to find the place where you belong. And if it's not here, you know God, I wish you well as you go forward and find, and that reminds me of a story that our pastor shared one time. And I'm not necessarily one for remembering a lot of stories, but there's a few. And this particular one is the story of two young men, and they leave their home cities to go out and find their way in the world. And young man goes forward, and he comes to the next city, and at the gate of the city is a wise man. And the wise man, you had to answer the questions of the wise man before you could enter into the city. So the wise man asked the younger man, uh, what was it like where you lived? How did you find your neighbors, and how did you find the community, and what was living there like for you? And the young man said, oh, we had the worst neighbors, and everything was terrible, and the mayor was doing a horrible job, and the streets were a mess, and to sum it all up, nothing was right. And so the young man says, what's it like here? And the wise man says, you'll find it the same. So the next young man comes up to the wise old man, and he asks him the same question. What was it like where you lived? Why did you want to leave? That sort of thing. And the young man said, I had a wonderful life. I had great neighbors, and I had a great community. And I'm here to find the same and have a good life. And the wise old man said, you'll find the same here. So the moral of the story is, you bring who you are to where you go. Oops. We're going to reload here, or are you seeing that on your end, Don?
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, I saw a big red thing on my screen. I thought, okay, did I drop off? Was I talking to myself?
No, you're doing great, and it's great you're sensitive to that. Actually, Dr. Constance Leyland has a great response to your question. Is her definition of relationship and partnership, and what Dr. Constance says is, to me, the difference between relationship and partnership is boundaries. They have similarities, but also differences depending on what the goal is. And that's true. I mean, you could be related to somebody and not do anything with them, just know them in some way. But a partnership, I think, is actually making a more solid commitment to doing something specific together. Where I think relationship is knowledge. I know you, you know me. Maybe friendships turn in from relationships, but I think partnerships really have a element of work involved or investment involved for it to become a true partnership. And probably partnership has a lot to do with equality, right? Because to be a partner, typically a good partner is at least 50%, right? If you're in a partnership where you're less than that, you're not equal partners. You make up the whole, and control becomes an issue. And that becomes an issue in relationships and partnerships. And then with that said, it lends itself to trust.
Yeah.
Because there are people I'd be happy to give control to because they're better at it and they deserve it. So, people who just look at the superficial, whether they're numbers or profiles, and I think that's why this program supports and empowers partnering, because you get to know the person as a person first. Too many people know somebody as who they were, what they intend to be, and then find out who they truly are. And they probably wouldn't have gone in partnership with them if that true self would have been known. Or maybe they would have. Maybe that would have encouraged you to say, I mean, how many times did you walk in and your first impression is something that's different than when you walked out, right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, when it comes to certain types of partnerships, and it often happens in business, is that you may not may not necessarily know a person until you meet them in court, you know, what they're really going to bring out. And, when it comes to partnerships, and I know that you've said, I believe that I've heard you say that you've done things right on a handshake, and that you've had great relationships that have happened that way. When I was a florist, I was a small business owner for a number of years, and I had a flower shop, and I had the benefit of going into that business having been an advertising manager in my local community, in my area, region where I was living and working. So I had the benefit of knowing a dozen or more flower shops within an hour north and south of where my shop was. So one of the things that I quickly found is that life changes, and things in business change. And shortly after I bought my flower shop, one of our major distributors decided they were going to start serving and selling bouquets of flowers that they were handcrafting in their warehouse. And they were going to sell it to our local grocery stores. And they were going to be competing directly against the independent shops. So the very shops that they were supplying, they were going to now be retailing against. So they were wholesaling to me, but they were going to be retailing through their local grocery stores. Well, that was a problem for me as a business owner. I can't retail at your wholesale prices. And if you're retailing less than what I can, because you've cut out this middle person, bully for you, but it isn't going to help the wedding orders, and it's not going to help the funeral orders, and it's not going to help certain types of events that need arranged florals. It's one thing to go pick up a loose bouquet and pop it into a vase, but you don't want that for your wedding bouquet necessarily. So anywho, long story short is I contacted the flower shops up and down the River Valley area where we lived, and we created our own informal co-op. And it's a type of partnership. And we bought our flowers in bulk, and we started buying them from outside the province. So we went to Ontario, we went to Mississauga. For those of you who know Canada, it's kind of the retail mecca for Canada is Mississauga. It's where all the imports are coming into, and that included flowers. So we actually, a few times, we actually bought flowers from the flower clock, and that was really exciting. I was on the phone, and this was the days before live in Zooms and all that. And I'm listening on the phone to the auctioneer, and they're on the other end, and they're saying, okay, carnations are coming up. We're going to sell them for 17 cents a bunch. Oh, 16 cents a bunch, or 21 cents a bunch. And, so you had to find, okay, where's that going to drop down to? And where am I going to, okay, where's my buy-in point? So we bought some that way, but we also just simply bought from larger distributors from outside of our region and had them shipped in. So seriously, rather than paying $1.24, $1.67 for a single rose, as a group buying them by the thousands, we were buying our roses for 21 cents and 24 cents a piece.
Well,
that's a big change for a small business owner.
That's enough to keep you in business or even make you some more money. And I think that's so key as an example, because what the intent, knowing what we built, is a model for what we can build onto what we built and expand it and have this message become more valuable because it gets projected to more people, is aggregation. In my prior life, owning and founding all my businesses, I only did it because of bringing people together as a team inside the business, bringing people together outside the business to work as strategic partners and have relationships. And I ultimately was able to be one of Walmart.com's first chosen players for 2 years when it was a private marketplace. And I was able to aggregate over 800,000 products a day from third-party drop shippers with no inventory risk. And but here's the thing, and to your point, Amazon does exactly that. They offer a place where they'll let you sell for 12 to 15% of the gross, or they'll sell, and they do sell. So you can buy it from Amazon, you can buy it from Amazon partners. Well, what used to happen is I'd go to all the trade shows, because what I learned from Walmart and Amazon, you can't get in front of them. They'll run you over. You can ride on them and find places like they would never go, because 100 of something to them is nothing. But I could buy hundreds, 500s. I could buy something in 5 minutes, didn't need a strategic plan for 90 days. And I could pay for things in cash, right? So the point is eventually either they made money off of you, and when the line got so good, all of a sudden they'd sell it. Your sales would drop off, and now you were just a vendor acquisition tool. So when I saw LinkedIn, I said, well, people cannot be commoditized like products. People can't be bought and sold. People can't be relegated to what a product does versus a person. But if you can take the same principles of partnering, co-oping, whatever you want to call it, to bring people together who independently would be challenged to get to scale or get to any level where they know everything. And I think the key word Roxanne mentioned, everything is dynamic. Your plan changes tomorrow because the world's going to change tomorrow. Whether you decide to keep up with it, that's your choice. And the thing is if you're with more people, and one of the benefits of this show and shows like it is that it's not just getting a better mindset, it's getting tied into a better knowledge share. If 40 people are working on something today and 10 come back tomorrow and say, here's what I just learned, here's what I just did, and really focus in on what you're part of and who you're with. Why keep meeting strangers, which may take forever to get to know, when you already have friends that are proven day in and day out? And like I keep mentioning this week, look at your schedule. If there's an open time, find an open person.
Yeah.
Right? I know Roxanne and Christine couldn't have got to know each other if someone didn't reach out. I know Kelly and Christy. I know, Kofi and Brian are coming back as a duo, right? So why not start thinking, who could that be? And if you do it as an extension of what you're already doing every day, it's not too uncomfortable, because it should be, hey, I've been noticing you on the comments and seeing you. Hey, be great to have a call just to share insights, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the reason. So it's like, I'm not selling, no pressure.
Exactly.
Right? And if you want to, and if they say no, then that puts them in a different category, because that's as far as it's going to go. But then
and that's okay.
Yeah, but there should be pressure, and there will be pressure that, geez, I got to see this person every day, and they're a nice person. Why wouldn't I have a call with them? Right? Because I don't want to be the guy who talks and never walks the talk. When everybody's saying I'm so accessible and I'm into helping people, and then someone finally rings their bell and says I'm busy, that changes that. So I think if everybody realizes that you have to earn your spot every day to keep your spot, that you shouldn't take anything or anybody for granted.
No, you can't. And if you are, then again, that speaks to your character. If you are taking people for granted, we've got some amazing conversations happening here.
Yeah, and we've got Kinga Vajta. God, I needed this. I feel like I always know what I needed when I needed all of you. Well, I think, and Kinga comes back with this very strong empathy, looking at what their life may be like and seeking ways to help them. Well, wouldn't you want to take some time to understand something and appreciate something before you judge something, or you even have to judge anything? Who says
Exactly.
you're the judge of anything?
Exactly.
Who made you that magistrate? You know, I would rather just say, I'm hoping there's more to it that's good. I'm hoping the next thing they say turns everything around, because if you just listened, and here's another element of LinkedIn Lives people don't understand. It's not like a typical audience where you look out and you see who's there. People are coming and going every minute.
Yeah.
And really, that's why I think, and the other dynamic is we've got 200 comments that'll come by, and it's easier to touch on everyone for 30 seconds and go through them whenever there's some meat to the bone, you know, uh, and really getting people to think. And then after thinking, everybody's got a huge resource of experiences, of learnings, that something comes back and says, now that fits with that. It's kind of like the match game. So what's your thoughts, Roxanne? A lot of different ideas.
Yeah.
Here's
There's
Paul. Let me
yeah.
see. Okay. Great to see you both again. Loved your last episode on identity, Roxanne. So insightful and powerful. What do you say to that, Roxanne?
Thank you, Paul. You are such a gem. You are we all love you. We're all cheering for you, and I love that you're here and love what you're doing. And thank you very much. I'm always just thrilled, and I have to admit, I pinch myself and say, how did this happen, sort of a thing. But I'm such a fan of Dawn, and I have been for a long time. And it always is an honor for me to be here. I'm not I'm not a speaker by trade. I'm not a speaker or coach by lifestyle, but I've always been the person who wants to help where I can. I have had so many wonderful people in my life and in my career that have mentored me and coached me. And, sometimes, quite frankly, it was a kick in the pants. And the joke is, even a kick in the pants is a step forward. But, other times it's been people who have spoken into my soul and into my heart and have spoken words of encouragement and insight and wisdom. And I just always want to be the person who is open to learning, and it doesn't matter who it's from or what age or nationality or gender or any other defining. I'm about your, as you say, your intentions. I'm about your soul. I'm about, you know, what is it that you're wanting to accomplish? Are you building up or you're tearing down? Because we have met people whose purpose in life is to tear down. And, I am a person of faith, and I identify as a Christian. And, I've learned at a very early age to not want to be around evildoers. And that's a conscious choice that I have made.
Yeah, and I think, belief, commitment, dedication, these are all things you don't see on a balance sheet, you don't see on a profile. And the only way you see it is when people allow themselves to be seen in their natural way, because the beauty of it is if people take you for who you are and respect you for that, you've got a home. The people who don't are telling you you don't, and that's just the way it is. But with 900 million people, you shouldn't feel that bad, because there's another party going on. There's another LinkedIn Live going on.
Yeah.
And good people find good people and stay with them because they know the difference, especially if they've had adversity, if they've had challenges, if they've experienced severe loss, and then how do you respond to it? And I found every really, really big down was supported by people that were there for me. And without them, I wouldn't have gotten through it as fast. I wouldn't have got through it as well. And it taught me, hey, when they're in that situation, what it means to be there for other people. And I think less is more if you do more with the less.
I agree. I learned that if anyone who has been a business owner, of a bricks and mortar and e-commerce, what have you, the more money that you have, the more money you're going to throw at your problems. But your problems don't always need money. Sometimes your problems need other solutions. And I remember coming to a point in my business as a florist where I didn't have any more money. I didn't have any more credit. I was literally at the end of my rope when it came to what was in my bank account. And that's when you start to find, let's say, other ways to have your needs met and to grow and move forward. I've got so many stories around that, and I don't know if this is the time or the place, but um, I will say this because I feel it in my spirit to say it. Um, I think one of the greatest relationships that you can have, and maybe tying in a partnership there, if we want to push it a bit, is the relationship that you have with your soul and with your spirituality. And for me, I identify that greater universal identity as God. And for myself, there have been times where I didn't have the answers, and I didn't even have the strength, and I didn't have the wherewithal. And time and time and time again, um, God has come through for me. And I remember one particular Friday in my business, and my husband was not an owner of the business. It was my business. I was the sole proprietor, and it wasn't a limited business. It wasn't a corporation. It was literally Roxanne Reed operating as. And but somehow my husband got a hold of my checkbook, and he wrote a check for something that he thought needed to be paid for, and he didn't fill in the amount in the little checkbook back in the day. And it came Friday, and I'm going into the checkbook, and I'm ready to I mean, we're going back over 20 years. So I was writing checks for my staff, but I didn't know if I had enough money to cover the the payroll, because I didn't know how much he had written the check for. And we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have FaceTime, and we didn't have all of those things. But I called up the local bank and made an inquiry and found out how much money was in the checking account. And there was not enough money to cover payroll. And that was about 10 o'clock because I had to wait for the bank to open. And people were going to be expecting their checks in the afternoon. So I went into the corner of the shop and I started praying because I didn't have any place to get that money from. And I might get emotional, but I kid you not, people started coming in. There were truck drivers that pulled off the highway and said, I felt like I'm going to start and buy some flowers for my wife. There were people who stopped and bought cactuses. There's people who stopped and bought plants. They bought pictures. They bought cards and teddy bears. And taking it a little bit further, um, those are the days where clearing took a couple of days. So anything that went through a visa would take up to 3, maybe 4 business days to clear. Again, I didn't have 3 or 4 days for money to land in my account. I needed money in my account that day to meet payroll. People were paying cash. They literally were handing cash over. And one of my staff came to me and he said, I don't know what's going on, Roxanne. He said, but I know you must have been praying for a reason. Because he said, we have never had this many customers on a Friday morning ever paying cash. So I'm telling you, I can tell you so many stories and so many instances, but that's one relationship that I have had early in my life and throughout my life. And for me, it is, I try to work from my own strengths. I believe that we have a responsibility to do the possible. But there are times in our lives where we need the impossible. And to have a relationship that's able to come through and a partnership that's able to come through during those impossible times, for me, has been life changing and priceless.
Well, that's so valuable and such a beautiful share. And that's another example of partnership, right? You can
For me, it
partner
is.
with anybody or anything that makes you feel more comfortable, that makes you believe the future is going to be brighter because you're not alone, because someone does hear your prayers, and prayers get answered, but it's a process too. It's a learning experience because again, if you don't have trust, everything you do from there will be limited because you'll be having one eye on skepticism, fear, everybody and everything else except what your main focus is. And I think that's another thing to partnership is selecting something you want to intensely get over or through or with, right? Too many people, they want 20 different things at the same time, and there's no energy for something specific. There's no focus. And it's like, say, give me everything, and it's not going to happen. But if you can really focus on one major thing, because they've shown, and that's really been proven so many times by the placebo effect, which is people get a sugar pill and get the same benefit if someone got the original pill. And what's really interesting about it, every year it continues to go up. And I think now it's almost 30% of people who can take something that has no value and create value from it because their belief is something that transcended their intellect. There's a saying which logical is not always legal, you know, and it's the same thing with belief is, they say belief is the belief in the invisible or faith is the belief in the invisible, you know? And here's another thing that I think will help everybody, no matter what challenge they're going through, is a sense of humor. It is still staying fascinated instead of frustrated, detaching from it and enjoying it from a how could this ever happen to me moment, versus how could this happen to me, and you bring everything down on yourself to magnify it. So got some great comments here. They're bigger ones. I'll be honest, I'm still in the process of figuring out the spirituality part. I just know that I've been addicted to helping people and learning since I was born. Things have worked out for me when I didn't know, and I think it's karma in the universe. Well, one thing I do know is there's so many people that overthink so many things and do so little towards taking action on them. That you can ask for help, but you got to be the first one to offer yourself that help, right? You got to get up for something to happen. You got to go to work, and you got to go to work as hard as you can, because some things, like Roxanne, and I've been in that boat. I used to have payrolls that were, you wouldn't believe how big they were. I mean, I'm talking a couple $100,000 a month at least, and these people, they didn't want to know, is their check going to clear? They were depending on that check clearing. There wasn't any wiggle room to let's talk about it. And, then you're forced to do things because of cash flow, but it also forces you to think harder, smarter, better, right? When it comes easy, you take it for granted, and eventually it's an entitlement when it doesn't show up. You're so used to it showing up, And when it doesn't, it's like, how could this ever happen? And what I say is always err on the side of it's going to take longer than you think, going to cost you more than you think, and you're going to get surprised because all those unpleasant things show up too. As well, on the other side, you're going to be able to write people into a plan you have yet to meet, information you have yet to learn that could even make that plan bigger. And if you're going to work, if you're going to think, if you're going to really apply yourself, go for bigger goals.
Yeah.
Right? Shoot. I mean, if you're going to put everything you got into it, go for a bigger goal. And what they say is, even if you don't reach it, you probably would have got further than if you would have had a limiting goal.
Yeah. Yeah. They say shoot for the moon. And if you don't get there, you'll still be among the stars,
Exactly.
and further ahead than what you are today.
Well, and the thing is why predict? Why be a prognosticator? Why be a fortune teller? What good is it if you're right? But you wasted time. And a lot of times where you look is where you go. So
yeah, absolutely. And you see that when you're driving now, don't you? If you're not looking at the road, if the road's not where you're going to be.
Well, they actually did a study, and I don't know, and they said that a greater percentage of the accidents, like 70%, could be avoided if you looked at where you weren't going to go. In other words, once you see something in front of you and you just figure you're going right to it, you're going right to it. But if you just veered,
exactly,
right,
yeah.
You never know what could have happened. So the key is not to freeze up. Take it as it comes. Allow yourself to be comfortable with change because it's going to happen. Why not be proactive about it? Why not accept it? Because LinkedIn Live was something that most people still don't know about. The people who know about it don't understand it. And the people who would like to do it think it's a lot harder than it necessarily has to. So we got Olu here, says exactly that. Partnering isn't with only human beings. Belief matters to some of us. It informs and sets the standards of our ethics, morals, and principles. Well, you need something to anchor yourself.
Yeah.
And whatever you believe in, I believe you should believe in, right? Everybody's entitled to their beliefs. And if they work for you, they work, right? And if you're going to treat everybody equally, you got to respect everybody's feelings and beliefs as long as they're meant for positive and they present themselves that way. The worst thing you can do is blame something for doing something wrong. So in other words, because my religious, I'm going to go out and do something awful. That doesn't work. That betrays it, if anything, and then hurts the people who are sincere believers, and don't want to be categorized into those groups. Prayer is the highest vibration. Love vibration is how we communicate with the universe, our partner. There's enough love for everybody. Right? And all it takes is turning that switch on and turning the hate, the anger, the meanness off. It's just scary. It doesn't help anything. It just intimidates and pushes people back and away from communicating, away from trusting, and more importantly, away from what we're talking about today is partnering. Tapas is here. How about the one? We keep going in circles in life when we all want the same thing. Well, it's like if you knew if you work together, you could get more, be happier, feel better. And just like where you look is where you go, how you project is what you attract.
Exactly.
Like people like to flock together. The biggest takeaway I've had from the scrolls is laughter. I was so serious before, and I really implemented scroll 7. I will laugh at the world. Well, laughter is something you have available to you. There was a story of someone who was diagnosed with some terminal illness and given very little to live. And what he did is he went out to some log cabinet and took his little TV set at the time and his video recorder. And all he did was for 2 or 3 days play I Love Lucy and nothing but funny comedies, and that's all he did. That was his whole focus. And somehow he went into complete remission. No, really. And they said that laughter was the best medicine. And you never know what you don't know. But if you don't believe, that in itself will tell you it probably is not going to happen, because you're doing everything you can to restrict it from coming through. And, whatever you don't know, there's something that's yet to know. And believe in the mystery of tomorrow. And anything can happen, and it usually does. So what do you think, Roxanne? A lot of serendipity here.
We have. I don't. We've kind of strayed away a little bit from partnership as far as the conversation goes, but all of these things do tie into partnering, and they tie in because when we go into relationships, when we go into partnerships, it all ties back into everything that we're saying. What's the purpose of that relationship? What do we want to achieve from that relationship? What is the outcome of this relationship? And sometimes it's just, as you say, it's just a matter of, how is this relationship going to make you a better person, and it's going to bring you the things that you need and want in your life, and whether that is the needs and wants are spiritually based or whether the needs and wants are physically based, whether they are financially based, why are we going into those relationships? Why are we going into those partnerships? And LinkedIn has been amazing for me. I have had the greatest experience on LinkedIn. There was a time here about, I'm going to say probably about a year and a half ago, I was getting a lot of solicitation and I'm thinking, this isn't Tinder, this isn't whatever those dating sites are. But that seems to have improved. So I'm thinking that LinkedIn's doing a better job with that. But I have made some great partnerships here from LinkedIn. People that I'm working with, far as financing goes and lending goes, and buying and selling of businesses, and the valuation services that I do. People, I've created relationships and partnerships, and it's all been LinkedIn based. But so many of the people that have reached out to me have said, I've been, watching you, I've been listening to you, I've been, reading your comments, and you seem like a really nice person. And that's my intention. I want to portray who I am inside. I want to portray what you're going to get if you decide to connect with me, and if that connection leads to a partnership. I want you to know my core values. I want to know yours. And I think it's really important that when we're on social media, and when we are making our connections, we are creating relationships, and we are creating a type of partnership with the people that we connect with. And then who else that we choose to connect with from there, and as that grows and as that expands. But I think that the most important thing of any relationship and any partnership, connection, is authenticity and being real with who we are. And and we talk about asking the universe, you show up every single day, Dawn. You've done this show now for over a year, every single day. You are an exception. I honestly, not that I've gone looking, and maybe there's a million other people who are doing it, Dawn, but I somehow don't think so. That there's got to be very, very few that are doing what you're doing. And you're doing this just totally constantly blows my mind. And I start the show with that. I'll end the show with that, Dawn. You simply blow my mind with how you partner with people, how you connect with people, how that you encourage people, how you build people up. And there's nobody else like you.
Well, no, and I sure appreciate that. And that's so kind of you and so thoughtful. And I think it comes down to believing how important this is and how more important it can be to so many, right? And, to me, if I'm not here, I'm somewhere. If I'm not doing this, I'm doing something else. And if you have 24 hours in a day, can you have that 1 hour that makes you better for it? And I think that's one of the themes here is how do we become better together? Better as ourselves, but then better for everybody else who ultimately will enrich and fortify our group. And I think that's so key. So we've got a friend.
Well, we got Ginger. I don't even get a picture up here. She's
Go to Ginger.
Oh, there she is. There you go, Doodlebug.
She enjoys your company, I can tell. No, and that's so wonderful because, why not personify, like you say, your authentic self, be who you always wanted to be even, and know that you're getting better little by little. And that alone will tell you that if given enough time, little things compound. I mean, if you're into finance, you know what compounded interest can mean, and if you can compound your time, your relationships, your thoughts, and all of a sudden it's like we're not dealing with competition. We're dealing with partnering for mutual benefit, mutual success. People are making money with and for people, not off of people. Everybody can win without a loss if you're doing it internally from the resources you have inside of yourself. There's so much value that is getting underutilized because there's no thought of bringing it back. And, when people talk about their families or grandparents, and I know it's a natural thing, all of a sudden you start thinking about your grandmother. All of a sudden you think about Christmas when you were young, when someone's talking about their Christmas, when their best memories or whatever it is. And, how much value is someone who now reignites a flame in somebody, who brings light, hope, and knowing tomorrow can be better and should be better for you because of now you're finally in something you relate to. People relate to you. They're excited to see you. I mean, how many places do you go where you walk into a bank and everybody stops and says hello to you? Nobody, right? You're lucky if someone who doesn't disrespect you doesn't say something, let alone someone who does. But when you can find a difference, and I think Paul made a really good comment here that I want to share is, Don, speaking of partnership, how did you enjoy being on the Hound Show? Definitely was a different type of show than you're used to. Well, it doesn't really matter the show. It matters the audience, and if the audience is somebody you relate to, and what I'm seeing is shows are just really the same people going to different places. I see Paul everywhere. I see Kelly all over the place. All these people are looking for more ways to learn. But what I will say about most shows is the best shows are always about the we, not the me, are always about the audience first, because they're the ones who are paying the admission with their time, their thought. And you got to earn that every day. I know all my most important relationships, and most of them were by handshake because they were 20, 30, 40 years old. I knew these people so well and they knew me that it was just understanding. Lawyers sometimes needed to be there for documentation or something to relate to, but lawyers never told you what you could change, what you could make more fair in time. And I think that's the thing is when you do things for people, they know even legally you're not obligated for, or actually that was the deal you walked into. But I'm sure Roxanne's come into situations with people that they said, I never knew this clause was here, or I didn't understand this, or whatever. And at that point, it's like, okay, let's talk about it. Where are we? And at a certain point, I'll tell you one thing, maybe even harder to believe. I did over $500 million worth of sales through my companies and hired over thousands of people over that 37 years. I never was in court for a day. I never had to defend myself. And typically it wasn't just luck. It was because I chose who I did business with, and I stuck to those people. Right? So I never had those issues. And the other thing is I took responsibility when maybe I didn't have to. Right? I just said, hey, I can see their point. I don't have to do this, but I'm going to take care of them. And then I always factored in what was the cost of the lawyers.
There's that.
Yeah, and I say I'm going to pay these guys this. Why not just give it directly to the person? And when you deal with lawyers, no one knows the outcome. You could pay a lot and still lose.
Yeah.
So why not just say, hey? And the other thing I learned is when you're dealing negative stuff that's going to go forever, it's always going to be with you. Something that's outstanding, a bill, a litigation, is something you're always going to have to focus on versus say, hey, let's put that to bed because it's not worth the energy, the distraction, things of that. And that's really about being pragmatic. And at the end of the day, partnerships should be based on pragmatism, practicality. What can we accomplish? What can we achieve? What can we build on? And what I just said in 30 seconds is the basis of doing something or not doing something.
Yeah. And be the person that people want to partner with. That's what you bring to the table. You need to be that person that people want to partner with.
Yeah, and they should be the person you need to complete what you need to do.
Exactly. Hey,
But
look, I've made a few deals with the devil in my time. I'm not going to say I haven't, but they served a purpose in the moment. And once that was done, that relationship was over. But I don't know how that you can go through life and not, but I'm a realist, and there's been a few people that I've done business with that, you made sure the T's were crossed and the I's were the I's were dotted, and take care of it and be done. But those are the people I chose to, we'll say it this way, to live with. And they're not the people I chose to invite to my birthday parties.
And here's the thing, you don't know until you find out. So you don't know what a bad person is until you finally meet up with one at whatever point of your life. What I did learn is the earlier you learn, the longer the lesson lasts, and the less expensive it becomes by learning it early. So that's
what I will say, Dawn, is that when there are some people who are who they are and who they say they are, and believe them. And if they are telling you they're not a nice person, they're not a nice person.
Well, and you're so right. And don't believe you're the fix-it person, right?
Exactly.
What you see is what it is, and why not go to work with something that is instead of isn't? There's too many people, and at the end of the day, it's figuring things out sooner, dealing with them faster, and being the better person wherever you can, And if you're working something, and another thing about partnerships, they should be limited in scope, because what will happen in time is people will change. So people start out the same way with the same needs, and all of a sudden they came into money or lost money or did something, and now they're a different person with different goals, and you're with them. And that's something you have to be aware of. So again, I would walk slowly, do things that are measured, and then based on how the result is, decide to continue or not. Everything I do is 30 days at a time because I want a choice. Do I want to continue? And when everybody knows no one's to be taken for granted and everybody's got to earn their spot like everybody else, then people say, well, there's something in it to be good here. and there's something not in it that if I'm not very good. And the other thing, and there's so many other things, that's why we do it every day.
I know.
It all, and that's the
I
beauty
know. I know.
is that if you look at life as a puzzle and as a mystery and as a joyful endeavor, then everything is an experience, and an experience by itself is living, enjoying, trying something new. But after you get to a point where you've got what you need, then it's just complementing it. It's not doing dramatic changes. If you've got 20 people you're working with and you trust, you don't need 21. And then you can close the door on who is this person? How do I work with them? It's like I got more to work with than I can. And I think that's the beauty. And when you feel you have more, your cup's running over, you're in such a much better position to root somebody who isn't, to help somebody isn't. Let me share a little bit of mine. I can't even keep up with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that teaches people. So anyways, hopefully we helped a lot of people. What did I enjoy most about being on the show? Start with a question, never get to the answer. It was different people doing different things in different ways. And every show, there was probably something you can pick up on that you weren't aware of in your own show, and vice versa. So it's another knowledge sharing, but it's groups sharing with each other. And after a while, I'm very comfortable allowing people to see what's out there because they should. But then I also believe they'll know the difference between the energy, between the takeaways, between the interactions that really give them more confidence in what they are doing. So some things you look at and say, wow, that's a wonderful, refreshing change. And other things create a definite confirmation of what I already thought.
Yeah.
Right? That's why you go for second opinions. Sometimes they'll be the same. Sometimes they might open your eyes to something you never knew. And sometimes they give you less than what you had. And at least you can say to yourself, I checked it out. And not only that, but if you check out and it's even better, share it with everybody. If you went to a terrific restaurant, had the best meal of your life, everybody you talked to for probably a day or two, you'd have to be sharing it unconsciously. And you're not an interest in the restaurant. So anyways, don't get us going because we can't stop at a certain point. And it's all your fault if we do. So with that said, let's see everybody in 23 hours. I want to thank Roxanne so much for bringing so much quality Roxanne to the show today. And I'll let Roxanne say her second final words before we sign off.
I love you all, and I appreciate you all so much.
Well, it can't be better than that. And I'm not even going to say something. So goodbye for now. Thank you so much. Come back all week. We got wonderful people, and we're here for you.